for tuning in. Your Madison City Schools broadcast will begin momentarily. Thank you for tuning in. Your Madison City Schools broadcast will begin momentarily. Thank you for tuning in. Your Madison City Schools broadcast will begin momentarily. Thank you for tuning in. Your Madison City Schools broadcast will begin momentarily. Broadcast will begin momentarily. Thank you for tuning in. Your Madison City Schools broadcast will begin momentarily. Thank you for tuning in. Your Madison City Schools broadcast will begin momentarily. Thank you for tuning in. Your Madison City Schools broadcast will begin momentarily. Thank you for tuning in. Your Madison City Schools broadcast.
I'd like to call the City of Madison Board of Education special called meeting for February 23rd, 2022 to order, please. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Thank you. Ms. King, roll call, please. Here. Here. Here.
Here.
Board, if you'll take a moment and review the agenda, we need a motion and a second to proceed.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Lessman and a second by Mr. Cummings. All those in favor of the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Agenda passes. Dr. Nichols, are there any presentations this morning?
No, sir, Mr. President.
With no presentations, we'll move straight into action items. Dr. Nichols?
Mr. President, members of the board, I recommend for your approval the removal of the mass matrix for the Madison City School District.
Board, the superintendent recommends the approval of the mass matrix for the Madison City Schools. Can I have a motion and a second?
So move.
Second. We have a motion by Mr. Cummings and a second by Mr. Holsey. Discussion, board? Board, I believe that we've made the best decisions based on the data and recommendations provided by our local health agencies to keep the kids in school and the teachers teaching over the course of the last 2 years. Over these 2 years, the virus has changed, the infection rates have fluctuated, the vaccine has become available, and community responses have changed. Due to these changes, I'm in favor of repealing the mask matrix and moving the district to a mask optional status inside our buildings. Any other discussion, board? No discussion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of the superintendent's recommendation to remove the mask matrix for the Madison City Schools, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. Dr. Nichols.
Mr. President, members of the board, make a recommendation to move our district to a mask optional status beginning Thursday, February the 24th, 2022.
Board, the superintendent recommends a mask optional status for Madison City Schools beginning Thursday, February 24th, 2022. Can I have a motion and a second?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Mr. Holsey and a second by Mr. Cummings. Any discussion, board?
Mr. President, members of the board, just a reminder to the board that policy number 4.13 still allows superintendent to make regulations and policies and procedures under the guidance of the ADPH. As you remember that allowed us as we began this school year to put masks on. However, that also kind of hampered us a little bit, that it didn't allow the superintendent to take those off due to the wording of guidance instead of orders. So for us to move even without a mask matrix, it reverts us back to where we were on that date. So this recommendation allows us to move the board to a mask optional status upon your approval. And then we still are under policy 413 in the future if we need to be, and we will look at that policy through the policy committee to see if it needs any fine tuning.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Nichols. Further discussion, board?
And I would say that if you approve this, we still are under the guidance, the directive of the Transportation Department that masking will be on buses. Now, that's a federal issue with federal transportation issues. I do think there may be some change in that in the near future. We're hearing that out of the CDC and the State Department, but they have not changed that at this time.
So after today, the only enforced masking will be on the buses?
If you approve this recommendation, yes, sir.
And just to clarify, Dr. Nichols, that parents who wish their child to keep their mask on, that will still be an option, and the
Yes.
teacher will work with them?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It's an option to or not to if you approve this recommendation. And so we leave that open to the choice of the parent. Now, if the parent wants their child to do that and the child comes to school, and we're not going to spend all our time trying to figure out who does and who doesn't,
Right.
you know, and so they'll need to have that conversation with their own child as they look at the option of mask.
Okay.
Further discussion, board? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of the superintendent recommendation to move to a mask optional status for Madison City Schools beginning Thursday, February 24th, 2022, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. Dr. Nichols.
That's all the business action and no personnel actions, Mr. President.
All right. Any superintendent comments?
I would just like to say to the board, first of all, this has throughout the last 2 years been a challenge for all of us, all of our teachers, our parents, our students, everyone. I appreciate you, the board, for making decisions, not always popular. I've gotten emails, and I can tell you that I have as many on one side as I have on the other. And as I'll go and visit, some teachers feel one way and some teachers feel another. We've all been touched by that. 3 weeks ago, we had a young student in the school district in ICU. Luckily, they recovered and came home. But I can tell you as superintendent, and on behalf of you as the board, I could at least look them in the face, and I could say we tried to do everything we could at that moment in the height of that time. That's a responsibility that we have. Each of us is responsible. I have a child, and all of you here have children, and we're all responsible for them. But we're also responsible up here for 12,000 of them. Now, at the same time, when we started this journey, which I hope is over, no one wants it to be more over than all of us, I promise. But we said we'd be flexible and look. If you look at the data, we've had significant changes in the data. As they said back in the beginning of the new year, it will rise faster than the other one, and it will fall faster than the other one. It has. And that's the one reason that we're here today is, as we look at that information, I felt like it was time to make a change because of all that information and the data that we had. You know, it's all going to change. We're all going to look back, and data is going to be restudied and studied. But making those best decisions on behalf of kids, and I can assure you that I could argue all sides, as I said back in October, I think it was. Any recommendation I make is going to make somebody unhappy. But I have to lay my head down and know that if that child does go to ICU, I did everything I could at the height of that to take care of somebody, make a good decision. But at the same time, I make that decision today. There are folks who've sent emails in the last 24 hours that don't want to change. Well, I think the data says that it's time to do that. And I appreciate you supporting the recommendation and moving us into this next phase, and I hope the last phase. I hope that for all of our families and our community as we move forward. And I appreciate your support throughout these many months as we've tried to maneuver through that. So thank you very much. I appreciate each of you.
Thank you, Dr. Nichols. Go through board comments. Ms. Lessman?
I would also like to thank you, Dr. Nichols, and your central office staff, the central office staff, and the teachers. Thank you, teachers, staff, for working with us throughout these past 2 years. Like you said, I hope this is the end of this, and we appreciate parents being flexible with us as well as we try to make the best decisions for our district, for all 12,000 kids. Thank you.
Mr. Cummings?
I think Dr. Nichols hit it directly on the head with his comments. Up here, we're trying to do the best thing that we can do with the information that we have, with everyone in mind. And I think now it's time for the change. And I'm sure history will say if we was right or wrong, if there is a right or wrong, but know that we did it with the intentions of every student in this system in mind.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings. Mr. Olsey?
I would just echo what the rest of the board has said. Dr. Nichols, thank you for all your hard work during this time, and thank you to our teachers and staff who have tried to carry our directives out. Certainly, as you said, Dr. Nichols, as conditions have changed, we have tried to adjust, and I believe that in looking at where we are with this current trend, we are making the right decision in that regard. But thank you again for all you've done to lead it. It has not been an easy process at all. So thank you for your perseverance and your leadership. And again, thank you to all of our teachers and staff who have also been great through all this, and we appreciate you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Holsey. Our next school board meeting is going to be February 24th, 2022, in this boardroom at 5 p.m. We'll have a Finance Committee meeting on March 10th at 4 p.m. and a school board meeting following that at 5 p.m. on March 10th in the boardroom. With nothing further, I'll entertain a motion and a second to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Lessman and a second by Mr. Cummings. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Any abstained?